The sound of roaring engines and clinking beer bottles filled the smoky air of a small roadside diner that doubled as a biker hangout. The men inside were hard as steel, faces carved by years of rough roads, their leather vests marked with the word disciples. To outsiders, they looked like trouble, men no one would dare to cross. But on one cold, rain-soaked evening, the door creaked open, and silence fell. A young woman stepped inside, drenched from head to toe, her hands trembling, her dress torn. She was heavily pregnant, her face streaked with mud and blood. Every eye turned toward her as she took one shaky step forward, clutching her belly as if it were her last lifeline. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "Please, someone help me." Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of helping others, even when the world seems cruel, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it. Your small gesture might help spread hope to someone who desperately needs it today. Her name was Lena, and she had been running all night. She wasn't running from a storm. She was running from a man who had once promised to love her. The father of her unborn child had turned into something she could no longer recognize. After years of emotional and physical abuse, that night had been the last straw. When he raised his hand again, this time she didn't stay quiet. She grabbed what she could, a small bag, her phone, a bottle of water, and ran. She didn't even have time to put on shoes. The rain came hard, and her phone died halfway through the night. The only lights she could see were from this diner by the highway, a place that looked like salvation but also danger. She had seen men like these before, tattoos, leather, cold stares, but she had nowhere else to go. Her contractions had started early. She needed help. Inside, the bikers stared. Some frowned, others whispered. The man standing closest, a huge bald figure with a grey beard and arms covered in tattoos, slowly stepped forward. His vest read Devlin, President. His face was unreadable. "You're lost, lady?" he asked in a low growl. But before she could answer, her knees buckled and she collapsed onto the floor, gasping. Blood streaked her arm and her eyes filled with tears. Devlin knelt beside her. For a long moment he didn't speak. He looked at her trembling hands, her swollen belly, the bruises that were still fresh. Then something in his expression changed, a flicker of memory, of pain. Without a word, he picked her up, his massive arms holding her as if she were made of glass, and carried her to one of the booths. The others exchanged glances, confused, cautious, but no one dared to question their leader. He barked orders. "Get towels, call Doc, move!" The men scrambled. Within seconds, a scene that once looked like danger turned into one of desperate compassion. A few bikers grabbed blankets from their bikes, someone brought a cup of hot tea, and another fetched a first aid kit. Lena could barely breathe. Her body shook uncontrollably, not from the cold, but from fear. "Please," she whispered, "he's going to find me." Devlin's jaw tightened. "Who?" She hesitated. "My husband, he's a cop." The room froze. A few men cursed under their breath. Cops and bikers didn't mix, not in this part of town. But Devlin didn't care. He looked her dead in the eyes and said, "He's not finding you here. You're safe now." It was the first time in years Lena had heard those words and believed them. The club's medic, an old man named Doc Wheeler, arrived a few minutes later. He checked her vitals, cleaned her cuts, and confirmed that her baby was under stress but still okay. Lena needed rest, warmth, and calm. The men dimmed the lights, locked the doors, and took turns standing guard. As the night deepened, Lena fell asleep in one of the booths, wrapped in an oversized leather jacket. Devlin sat nearby, silently watching the rain. His mind wasn't in the present anymore. It was 20 years back to a small apartment and a woman named Maggie, his wife. She had died giving birth while he was in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He had come out a different man, bitter, broken, and angry at the world. The club had become his family, the only place that accepted a lost soul like him. But seeing Lena, Bruised, desperate, carrying a child, it ripped something open inside him that he thought was long dead. By morning, the rain stopped. The sun peeked through the blinds, painting soft gold lines across the floor. Lena woke up confused but safe. Someone had left her a warm breakfast and a note, "You're under our protection now." "Rest," she cried quietly as she ate. No one had shown her kindness in so long that it felt foreign, almost painful. She stayed hidden for 2 days, while the disciples made sure no one came sniffing around. But trouble has a way of finding the broken. On the 3rd day, 2 black police SUVs pulled into the diner's parking lot. The man who stepped out wore a badge and rage, Lena's husband. He slammed the door and shouted for her by name. "Lena, I know you're in there." Inside, Devlin stood by the window watching. His fists clenched, the old fury boiling inside him again. The men behind him waited for orders. The world outside seemed to hold its breath. Devlin stepped out first. The air between the 2 men crackled like static. "She's not going anywhere with you," he said calmly. The officer sneered. "You think you can hide her from me, old man? She's my wife." Devlin took a step closer, towering over him. "She's not your property." The officer reached for his gun, but before he could draw it, 6 bikers emerged from the diner, forming a silent wall behind Devlin. Their presence alone was enough to make any sane man hesitate. The officer's hand trembled. He looked from one face to another, realized what he was up against, and spat on the ground before storming off. "You'll regret this," he muttered. When he was gone, Devlin turned back inside, his heart pounding. Lena was shaking, terrified that he'd come back. Devlin knelt down again, just like that first night, and said softly, "You've got family now. Nobody's touching you." From that day on, Lena became part of their world. The bikers, rough, tattooed men society had written off, treated her like a sister. They fixed up a spare room in the diner's back office, made sure she had everything she needed, and even set up a little nursery with whatever they could find. One of them, a mechanic named Rusty, built a rocking chair out of old motorcycle parts. It creaked loudly but somehow became Lena's favorite spot. For the first time, she smiled. Months passed, and the baby grew stronger. Lena regained her confidence, her laughter slowly returning. But Devlin knew something dark still lingered, that abusive men rarely gave up easily. He had quietly arranged for her to get new identification and a safe house far away when the baby came. Then, one stormy night, almost mirroring the night she had first arrived, Lena went into labor. It was too soon and too fast. The roads were flooded and the nearest hospital was an hour away. There was no time. The men gathered around, their rough exteriors hiding a deep fear. Devlin took her hand. "You've got this, sweetheart. You're not alone." Hours later, the cries of a newborn filled the diner. The men cheered and cried like children themselves. A tiny baby girl, wrapped in a clean towel, blinked up at the world, her world, for the first time. Lena named her Hope. Devlin held the baby gently, tears glistening in his eyes. "You brought light into this place," he whispered, "but peace is never without cost." A week later, the abusive husband returned with a vengeance. This time, he came alone, drunk, armed, and desperate. He kicked open the diner's door, shouting for Lena. The baby was in her arms when the first shot rang out, shattering a window. Before anyone could move, Devlin stepped between them. The bullet hit him in the shoulder, but he didn't flinch. He lunged forward, disarming the man with one brutal motion, and pinned him down. The other bikers rushed in, restraining the officer until the sirens arrived. When the police came, Lena feared the worst, that they'd side with him. But Devlin had already made the call, recorded everything, and had witnesses ready. The truth came out, and for once, justice did too. As the paramedics treated Devlin, Lena knelt beside him, clutching his hand. "Why did you risk your life for me?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Because once someone should have done the same for my wife. I wasn't there for her, but I was here for you." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You saved us." He shook his head. "No, you saved me. Devlin survived. The club changed forever after that night. What used to be a group of outlaws became something new, a sanctuary for those who needed a second chance. They opened a community workshop, helping single mothers fix their cars for free. They raised money for shelters. People began to see them not as villains, but as men who had found redemption through compassion. Lena eventually moved to a small town with baby Hope. She kept in touch with Devlin and the club, sending pictures of her daughter's first steps, her first words. Every photo hung proudly on the diner's wall. And once a year, when the disciples rode through her town, they always stopped by her house. The sound of engines announcing that family had arrived. Years later, when Devlin passed away peacefully in his sleep, the club gathered around his grave. Lena stood there, holding Hope's hand. She whispered to her daughter, "That man, he saved our lives. Never forget that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they wear leather jackets." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even the two